And Oregon head coach Mario Cristobal does join us. And coach, you've done probably a lot of interviews. I know you got conference calls. You talked about coronavirus, when you may come back, and all that stuff's public record. So really what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to you just about football. And I want to start with you. Let's go back to January 1st. I know good and well you remember where you were on New Year's Day. I had covered the Citrus Bowl, Bama, Michigan. I'm driving back up I-75, and we're watching the Rose Bowl in the car. And it's tight. It's back and forth. You guys take the lead over Wisconsin. You win the Rose Bowl. It's 28-27 final. There goes the green Gatorade all over you. I mean, I know what I saw on TV, on that little screen, on that phone in my car, but tell me from your perspective, second year in, you just won the Rose Bowl at Oregon. What was that entire experience like?
Well, it was complete and utter validation for the players, your entire organization buying into a very demanding blueprint, one that was going to take everything that everyone had on a daily basis for 2 years, and one that really we're still in progress. We're still building upon that. But, I told the players a long time ago when I was first hired, when I had the privilege and honor to be selected to be the head coach at Oregon, I said, I know some people are motivated to buy rings and all that other stuff. And, you see, I never wear them. I have my $30 wedding band, which that's all I use. But I want to see you guys dancing in confetti. That's what I want to see. I want to see all you big, crazy, just hardworking, sweaty dudes just dancing in confetti, because when you achieve something like that through the hard work we did, it's a game changer for the rest of your life. And when that was accomplished, honestly, it was super enjoyable. We're running around. You saw all the hugs. You saw all the tears. It was absolutely awesome. But it also marks the beginning of what we feel is going to be a consistent march towards an elite level program.
So here's the thing. I could go back in history and I could find an example of someone who had a firework go off year 1, year 2, year 3, which is early in your tenure, and it just served as a rocket ship, and they went on to be a perennial contender. But then you can find other programs that came to that fork in the road and they rested on their laurels and they felt like they had arrived, and they go down this path where 10 years later, people are looking back saying, we did this in year 2. Like, how did we never replicate that success? So you've coached under Nick Saban. You guys have won championships, and you've seen what he's like 5 minutes later. So now you're a head coach at a major program. How do you make sure you calibrate everyone's focus and get things back on what they need to be to sustain success?
Well, you mentioned Coach Saban. He was a phenomenal mentor. Learned so much under him. I had the great fortune of playing for Jimmy Johnson and Dennis Erickson. You're around guys like Greg Schiano. There's a lot of just really regimented, competitive guys that had some awesome blueprints. And I remember my last stop before coming to Oregon was with Coach Saban. And I remember the relentless just approach to fighting human nature and fighting complacency. And you said it perfectly. Within 5 minutes, I think you overestimated. I think within 3 minutes, it was on to the next. I want to make sure that the seniors and the coaches, the staff, everyone in the organization knew how much we appreciated what they did to make it a reality. That's super important, because this is not an I operation. This is a collective effort. And as soon as that was done, on the march back to the hotel where family was waiting, family had to wait because, we had to get on the phone with some of our commitments and some of our potential signees or next class recruits. And the entire thought was, man, this is awesome, but we could have done even better. And we want to stay in that mindset. We want to stay with that process all the time. There's no sense of being content. There's no sense of relaxation at all. We're a hungry, humble, and driven operation, and we have miles to go to be exactly where we want to be. But we've come miles as well, because a couple years ago we were getting beat 38-3 and stuff of that nature. It's not happening anymore, and we're proud of it, but we know that we still got to get better.
Take me into the postseason sort of quality control evaluation process when you self-scout and you take a really, really stripped down look at everything you were in the 2019 season. Fans look at a Rose Bowl, they say that's almost as close to perfect as we can get. You look at it and you can see all the things that you could have done better. So maybe not from a micro perspective, but more a macro perspective, what are the areas that you looked at and said, it was good, but if we could have done this, it's good, but in the future, we got to do this. What are those areas for your program?
Oh, it's a great question. I think right away, strength and conditioning stands out. The advances that have been made, upon arrival, there was a lot of work to be done. Now we're the more physical bunch more times than not, and that's the goal all the time. Our disciplinary standards have certainly increased, minus a couple of games where we got a little bit, I would say, overzealous and things got a little bit testy. Our guys did a great job playing with great discipline, toughness, and executed really, really well. When you look at our play up front in the trenches, really set the tone for a lot of games. We prevented explosive plays. We made more explosive plays. We controlled and stopped the run better. We ran the ball better. Both those could still significantly improve. We know that. In the passing game, we want to improve the ability to make explosive plays. We had some. We made some. We have the personnel to do that. We had it last year, and we made some progress. We got to do more. I mean, nowadays, games are won and lost with how many explosive plays you can make and defend, how you do on third down, what you do with the middle eight, and, of course, the turnovers. And in the turnover department, we were really, really good. I think second or third in the country in that margin. We've got to improve that as well. We need to be first, right? If we don't put the ball on the ground one or two times, our record might be even better. We might be in the playoffs. Those things really stand out to us. I think also the level of leadership was the most important, the most prominent thing on the table last year and is this year as well. We will go as far as the ownership in the locker room and the leadership of our football team. Those guys understood what it was to put a foot in the ground and say enough is enough. We are going to take that next step as a program and set the standard for the years to come. So all those things stand out, but I could keep you here for about 22 hours with more stuff.
Feel no pressure to ever shut up when you're around us, I can assure you. Hey, you guys, I mean, I'm standing down in Mississippi a few months ago watching Joe Moorhead be a head coach at Mississippi State. I'm watching Brian McClendon as an offensive coordinator at South Carolina. And I don't know that people realize it because there's always so much going on, but both of those guys are on your staff now. You guys got Moorhead as your offensive coordinator up there. McClendon comes along as well. First off, these very good football minds. I mean, Joe Moorhead's record speaks for itself at Penn State before he even got to Mississippi State. McClendon, I looked back, he's been one of our former 24/7 Sports National Recruiters of the Year. That's a title that you brought home too. I mean, tell me a little bit about how much that means from a football standpoint, and also you guys recruit nationally. So from a recruiting standpoint as well.
Well, it starts with the fact that they were both incredible human beings. And they're 5-star recruits, right? I mean, you've got to have the best coaches in the country to be able to develop your guys, to build the right type of trust and relationships. And when you analyze the landscape of where we are on the West Coast, we want to make sure that we brought in a receivers coach, who, by the way, is serving as a pass game coordinator also. I mean, Brian is brilliant. Brian is brilliant, and he's such a personable, just talented, high care factor guy. It's a home run. I mean, we're blessed to have him. But we want to study, okay, where can we take the next step as it relates to our footprint at that position? Well, let's find the best of the best. Let's find a guy that's played it at the highest level, that's coached it at the highest level, and has developed players not only at the college level, but the NFL, and that has an impeccable track record. And we felt that would be the major reason that we can take that next step in wide receiver recruiting and offensive recruiting. Brian is that and more. And then Coach Moorhead was the moment. And again, he's such a great track record, right, with his career. I've been a big fan of what he's done. I've studied Penn State, and I've studied for him even before coming across Coach Moorhead. And when things went down the way they did at Mississippi State, saw it as an opportunity to reach out, and did not want to also be overbearing during a difficult time. But Coach was gracious enough to answer the phone. And in speaking to him within 5 minutes, I was like, if he matches this, his conversation matches his being, what he is as a human being, his DNA, this is a must-get, a must-have here at Oregon. And he has done nothing but exceed expectations as a person, as a coach, a developer of talent. His ability to develop the quarterback, his quarterback coaching acumen, off the charts. And what do we need? We need another guy at that position, at the coordinator position, that can elevate quarterback play and gain the trust of the top quarterbacks in the country. Just like Coach McClendon gained the trust of the best receivers in the country from a recruiting standpoint. But even more importantly, our most important recruits, the ones in-house. Our current players on our roster, right, at quarterback, at wide receiver, and the team as a whole, because those guys do have a platform. We provide platforms for our coaches to grow and address the team. And both those guys are guys that instantly gain trust, instant credibility, not because of what they've done, but the moment they walk in, their presence, the way they teach, the way they communicate, and the effort they put into developing those guys. I love them. I love our staff. They are the reason why we're progressing at the rate we're progressing.
Pretty awesome stuff. Oregon head coach Mario Cristobal joining us. Let me ask you a question that I don't really hear talked about much. There are coaches that go all over the place every year. There's overturn on your roster virtually every year, but all we ever read is a headline that, for instance, Mario Cristobal in Oregon, they've hired Joe Moorhead as new offensive coordinator, but you never get to be a fly on the wall in the interview process, probably because it's in the weeds and 99% of us wouldn't understand what's being said. But yet it's still fascinating. Like, I don't know calculus, but I watch calculus get taught, and it spins my head, but I'm still fascinated by it. When you're interviewing someone for a role like offensive coordinator, this is going to directly impact several games for you next year, one way or the other. What is an example, or are some examples of really specific questions you ask and really specific things that you have a guy get into from the granular football level?
I'd like to credit Coach Mangini with the New York Jets, who obviously worked for Coach Belichick back in the day. And you're looking at me going, how does this even come into the conversation? It comes into the conversation because in 2005 and 6, I was offered an interview opportunity with the New York Jets as a tight ends coach. And I went up thinking this will be, an hour or so, whatnot, and we'll just share information, talk a little ball. And, that was an 8-9 hour process where we talked football, but we demonstrated football. We scouted tape of the team and the players that I coach, and then the team and the players that I maybe would have an opportunity to coach. I was given scouting film and asked to evaluate in detail balance, body control, acceleration, deceleration, toughness, initial body quickness, you name it, hips, body stiffness, toughness, motor. I was asked to demonstrate the introduction of a concept in front of an entire room full of coaches and administrators. I was asked to sit in on a meeting and digest a concept and then be able to regurgitate it. I was asked to stand up and demonstrate technique and fundamentals as it related to a block, a release, an escape, catching a football, high pointing a football, a red zone ball versus, a contested, tight slant ball. It was a relentless process. So I'm sorry to, divert into that, but that's what led to our process, which we first used at FIU, where we were able to hire really great coordinators like Scott Satterfield, who ended up being a member of our staff back in the day. So when we bring in somebody, it's the ultimate, I would say, litmus test in terms of character, knowledge, presence. We do it first as an entire organization, have everybody sit in, because we want everybody to get a feel, because wherever we hire, right, can determine the fortunes of the entire organization. So I do want people to have a feel. And I trust a lot of people to come with me. I don't want people in our organization to be afraid to give me information on how they feel about things. But whatever is presented by that coordinator has to match the film that they're talking about, right? Because it's easy to talk about, well, hey, I believe in explosive plays and going tempo and making sure that we run by people. Okay, well, this clip of tape shows it's 42-0 in the third quarter. Tempo player. That's what you don't want. And when you start putting someone and letting them present their craft, number one is you want to see how well do they own their craft. Does that information, does the way he teaches, does it just roll off his tongue naturally, right? You also want to gauge their presence. Ask them to teach as if you're a freshman. I'm a freshman. You teach me. I don't know, anything from Adam's house cat to say Coach Saban's old line, right? And have them teach and go into it. And then once you get into it, they feel comfortable, then start throwing issues at them and have them respond. Well, all right, what do they bring corner fire? You're running into an unblocked corner, yet you don't have something attached on the backside to get rid of the football. How do you deal with that? And let them get into the way they, resolve things, because it's great if they own their craft, but let's see them handle sudden change, so to speak, right? Let's see them handle adversity. Let's see them make an adjustment. And are they going to get caught up and maybe stutter into it and try to talk their way around it, or do they have a solution on the spot where they can roll with it? Certainly want them around everybody in the building, the recruiting staff, the operations staff, academic staff. Want to share thoughts on academics, philosophies on dealing with young men and their families. How we just treat everybody that comes in the building, whether it's an intern, someone that's voluntarily working for us, coordinator. It's a really rigorous process because every hire matters. Every single hire matters. And, we don't claim to be, the know-it-all people, but we work extremely hard at it. And we take a great amount of pride in the fact that we know for a fact we have the best people in the industry.
If I were to take a pie chart, and here is Coach Cristobal's pie chart, these are the maximum hours in a day that he has. If you're a position coach, a vast majority of your time is spent with straight up football related activities. When you're a head coach, you got so much more on your plate. You've done it at a couple of stops now, and you're doing it right now at one of the elite programs in America. So you're talking about hires and how important it is. Well, that's because you got other things on your plate. You got to deal with all sorts of, in some cases, all sorts of things that people don't even know exist. So how many hours in your day can you spend as a head coach on football specific activities? And then how much extra is there that comes with the responsibility of being a head coach?
Wow. Well, that pie chart is goes a little bit here and there depending on the type of day, but it's one thing that's consistent. You have to start your day. You have to start your day at 4:30, 4:45, and you don't want to put a cap on it. It goes. And I don't say that to like pound your chest, say, "Oh, I'm up so early, I work hard." I really believe all coaches do that. You have to. There's just not enough hours in the day to accomplish everything. But wow, well, all of it's important. That's football is three parts, right? In terms of the performance part, you have talent acquisition is 1/3. You have player development is the other, and then of course personnel usage. So your day has to be broken up, taking all those things into consideration. And one thing I did learn at my last stop, where especially during this time of year where you have to invest a ton of time in, and I had never done it before, was the amount of opponent scouting and preliminary game plans that were put together during this time of year. While, and this part we have been limited in this year, is the ability to go visit places and always do everything possible to stay on the cutting edge. And the reason I say that is because I can't digest asking a player to, hey, this offseason, you got to do this to get better. You've got to increase your acceleration. You've got to increase your ability to come out of your hips, and get separation, shed the blockers and make tackles. I just can't digest asking that of a player and yet not doing the same with our staff. Hey, we've got to go find out better ways to cover kicks. We've got to find better ways to have our frontline guys and our kickoff return team, get to their landmarks, flip their hips, and go low to high and execute their blocks. Sometimes it's a coaching blurb. Maybe it's a sound bite, right? Because we like to coach in sound bites. I don't like running tempo and then trying to give a dissertation to a player that's trying to get a signal, trying to digest the signal, get lined up and play, right? Everything is fast, so we could coach even more off of tape, but you still have 7 to 10 seconds to coach in between each play. And you've got to come off the field in a complete lather. Okay, now I know I didn't answer the question, but how's the day broken up? It's wake up and it's you gotta have Cuban coffee ready, like right away. I mean, that's the key to the whole thing. And I've taught both my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old how to make it. So the other day they want to find out, is this really good for you to drink this? Yeah, it tastes really good, but I was raised on it, so it's no problem. I guess I'll give it to you just like this. Yeah, let's say it's recruiting in the morning and you go from that time till 7 where you're meeting with your staff, where you quickly go to offense and defensive organization, and that'll roll till 8:39 when you meet with the players. And then you're practicing on the field from 10 to 12. We actually move everything up an hour to all this, but it gives you an idea. You got to make sure your coaches work out. Let them stay in shape. Our coaches got to be able to run. They've got to be able to demonstrate technique. They've got to be active. There is no walking on the field. The horn sounds, everybody's sprinting everywhere. And to make that happen, it is really my duty to make sure those guys have an opportunity to take care of their bodies, be healthy, and to lead by example. There's nothing worse. Remember that back in the day I used to play, man, there was that one coach that was enormous and, man, big whistle hanging out his mouth and just blowing it and just, hey, run here, run there. We can't be that. There's nothing against that. Did you have one of those?
Well, I've had them, but I've also observed it. I mean, I've not to mention names, of course, but I've always wondered if I'm a player, if I'm a sophomore who's starting for Oregon and Mario Cristobal's 375, but he's yelling at me for not hitting my goal weight. Like, how seriously am I about to take him? But let me ask you, how popular is that? Like, how prevalent is that coaching staffs are allotted time to work out? Is that pretty popular from what you've experienced?
We've always done it, and we try to make it fun and challenging. And we talk a little smack to each other. We all played on some pretty edgy teams back in the day. So we get after it, and I think it's a good example for our players as well, that they see that the coaches are committed to this. But we make sure that I mean, as a player, what did you trust? You trusted someone that was invested and that can truly make you better, and then the care factor was off the charts because you were there day or night, regardless of football. So we go by that. I mean, it's as simple as, do everything and treat everyone as if you're dealing with your very own son, because you're going to go all out, right?
I'm looking up and down from last year to this year. You can't talk specifics about this year, I know, but I'm looking at the nature of Oregon recruiting. And it seems like a generation ago, it was very regional in terms of an operation. Chip Kelly came in, they kind of developed that national brand. Nike does a lot to help with that. You're there a decade after that. And I was talking on one of our shows the other night. It seems like a lot of the style in the Pac-12 changed because of what Coach Kelly did at Oregon. And now you guys have come in, and immediately the physicality jumps out. And you're recruiting a roster, obviously, to fully implement the style that you want to play with, but you're doing it on a much more national level than I've ever remembered seeing Oregon do it. I was talking to you before we started, a kid from Lynette, Alabama that I used to cover all the time growing up, Triquez Bridges. When I'm coming up in the business, he's playing safety there and 5 other positions at Lynette, and you guys convince him, come to Oregon. And that's not all that uncommon these days. How have you guys done that, and how are you received nationally in recruiting, especially going into an area that you know well, the Southeast, where there are already a ton of good options? How do you tell a kid, how do you convince them, we got a good option up here too, why don't you come check this out?
Well, recruiting in general is challenging, no matter where you are, what label or logo is on your shirt. So we are just blessed that the Oregon, the brand itself, is strong. I mean, when it comes into a school, it gives us an opportunity right away to be in one of the top choices for every prospect that we come across. But I think what parents and players quickly realize when they set foot on campus is that the entire organization, the resources, the facilities, everything, it is geared for elite student athletes. It is one of a kind. Phil Knight certainly has been just awesome. That's all you can say. Completely committed to, and our administration is completely committed to the student athlete experience and the development of the student athlete. So I think at first, sometimes when you go east, they say, well, it's kind of far. And when they get there, they realize, okay, this is a kind of far that's worth taking a trip to and becoming a part of because of what it provides. It's so difficult not to segue into how broad this whole track, this whole path is to getting to where we are, while everybody clearly understanding that we're not where we want to be yet. We got some work to do, but I hope that kind of sideways answered your question.
No, that's what you're here for. Less of me and more of you. That's how an interview is supposed to go. So you just talked about the big picture, and when you're recruiting kids, and that process starts 2+ years before pen hits paper sometimes, if not most of the time. But take me up to the 2 weeks, 1 week, 72 hours, 24 hours leading up to signing day. Things get really crazy. And there are all sorts of rumors from our perspective. There are all sorts of rumors that fly around, and you get whispers and you get parts of stories, but yet you're at the epicenter. So you see it all and you're fielding all this stuff. What is it like trying to hold on to or make sure you lock down the best class possible? What all sorts of things are happening that we don't get to see?
That's when the test comes, right? And we like to think of signing day as a formality. If we've done our job the right way, relationships are strong, signing day is not decision day. Signing day is just the celebration. It's a ceremony for 90% of the guys that are coming in your class. There's always going to be that 10%, maybe less, sometimes more, that still have some indecision in their gut, that still are trying to figure things out. Think about it. you may have a commitment that you've locked into, and you've told another 10, 12 guys, sorry, we already filled up at that spot. Well, if that doesn't stick, you're not going to plan B or C. Things take a dip, from a selection process. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, better or worse, but it certainly takes your process off track. So, yeah, that can be a little bit stressful. I tell you one thing, over the last couple of years, it's just gotten better and better here, where the numbers have been fewer and far between. And it's got to be that way to be an elite program. Get it, it can happen, but I think it's getting less and less as it was before.
There's NFL Network had a special a while back about that I think it's the 94 Cleveland Browns staff, where it was Belichick and Nick Saban was the defensive coordinator there. But they had so many guys that were going to go on to become future head coaches, NFL level, college level. And so I was thinking the other day, I was talking about the 2015 Alabama team, and I remembered they had a loaded coaching staff. But then I Wikipedia'd it about 5 minutes before we started talking. The head coach is Nick Saban. That's a staff that had Lane Kiffin as the offensive coordinator, who's now a head coach. You got Kirby Smart, current head coach at Georgia. You got Mario Cristobal is now the current head coach at Oregon. Billy Napier was the wide receivers coach there. He's down at Louisiana. Mel Tucker is now at Michigan State. That staff, I don't know if people realize it because it's so recent, but that could be a staff that we look at another 10 years down the road as the newer version of that 03 LSU, 94 Cleveland Browns staff. How was that to be a part of?
Oh, I thought the best part about that was the competitiveness of the staff. How practice, how recruiting, everything was, all right, let's go. We're going to practice. This is inside run. We're going to knock you back. Now we're going to shut you down. We're going to one-on-one wide receivers versus DBs. It looked like game day. It really did. It was guys just refusing to be beat, coaches refusing to be outworked. Same thing for the recruiting trail. Everybody, no, I'm gonna make sure I get the top guy. I think this guy's better for the program because of this and that. And the other guy going, well, I think this guy's better. And Coach Saban had put together just a dynamic staff and a great strength staff, as well. Coach Scott Cochran was really a tremendous glue to the whole thing. Burton Burns, who's now with the New York Giants as a running back coach. Bobby Willems, who's with us here. I mean, you're looking at some experience, work ethic, demeanor. It was awesome. I have in my office, I have 14 spiral notebooks filled out front to back of daily notes of my 4 years there. And that year specifically has a large volume of those because of the circumstances, tough decisions, regimentation as it related to bowls, championship games, injuries, off-season work, dealing with some of the other issues that come up in college football, dealing with agents, right? When you have so many players that are going to be selected, or at least they're going to be pursued, as juniors. It's just fighting complacency, right? Fighting, overcoming a loss early that year. I'll never forget, we talked about how not even dead yet, and they've already buried us. They've already put dirt over us, and I can't express how thankful I am for that experience. That changes you when you're able to go through something like that and come out on the other side. We stay in touch. We have some pretty competitive battles now that go on between all of us, but at least we all exchange information as it relates to regiment structure and whatnot. So awesome experience.
Really good stuff. To wrap us up here, I want to ask you specifically about one player on your roster who is probably the most talked about player. And this has got to make you smile ear to ear because your most talked about player is an offensive lineman, which rarely happens. I think you would argue, and I would probably agree, it should happen more often, but it rarely happens these days. But Penei Sewell is a guy who is in legitimate conversation for a top overall draft pick this upcoming year. And he's been a model citizen. I've heard you talk about him before. What kind of traits do you have to possess to play the position he plays at the level he plays it at?
Well, those traits begin in the household that he was born and raised in, and Gabe and Arlene Sewell, you won't find better parents. You're looking at a super tight family. There's tremendous amount of powerful, impactful love in that household, but also discipline and toughness, right? Commitment to doing things the right way. And Pate he's explosive, he's athletic, incredible flexibility. What flies off the charts with all that is his incredible football IQ, his awareness as to understanding the game, from what the guy beside him is doing to what the tight end is doing. I'm pretty sure he could drop what the receivers are doing. He knows exactly what the quarterbacks and the running backs are doing. So he is able to play just carefree. And he has a natural inclination to be a very physical player. I mean, he enjoys, loves, craves contact and physicality and dominating opponents. And when you combine all that with the recoverability he has, I mean, he can get himself in and out of bad body positions, a pile-up that's got a leg trapped. He gets stuck and an edge rusher is coming around the corner where he can get out of it, spin around, and still get hands on him running by the quarterback. Is something that is rare. It's generational. And his heart and his commitment to his teammates is even more impressive than that, even a better person than he is a player. But the amount of power and athleticism, the combination with those two things, with the mindset and the football IQ, it is unique. And I really think, as a 19-year-old Outland Trophy winner, okay, youngest ever, he's just getting started. I mean, he really is just getting started. I mean, he's upset with me because we threw him a pass where he was double covered in the Pac-12 championship game, but it's not my fault. You know, they changed their coverage scheme, and we probably should have saved it. But he caught his pass, you know.
So going back to that quarterback position, I think a lot of outsiders who aren't day-to-day fans of the Oregon Ducks, all they know is, well, they had Justin Herbert, and he just went in the NFL draft, and I'm drawing a blank now as to what their depth chart looks like at quarterback. So if I live in Moline, Illinois, and I'm just a casual fan, and I turn on Oregon week 1, week 2, what am I looking at quarterback, and how do you guys feel about where you are?
Well, you know, we only had 4 days of spring practice, and like everybody else, we're all going through it. So it's not unique to us that we're going through this stuff. But Tyler Shuck left the season as the front runner for the starting job, and he entered spring ball and left spring ball as the current starter. Now, that does not mean we're not going to implement competition. There is going to be competition. All those young players are really good players. You know, Cale Millen's a really good player. You know, Jay Butterfield is a really good player. Robbie Ashford coming in from Alabama is a really good player. Okay, Anthony Brown is a really good player. So we're going to promote competition. And we felt like, with all the rooms in our building, all the positions, that was one that, because it's going to be a first-time starter, that one needed the most competition. So we're going to make sure that happens. But you're looking at, I'll start with Tyler. Tyler's just a guy he's explosive, he's smart, he is got tremendous command of the offense, and he can make every throw, and he's got great feet. Those that are practice will tell you, we end every Thursday, every Wednesday with 2-minute drill. And those last 5 or 6 practices of 2019, it was obvious that guy was going to be a great football player for us. And his the moments he got to jump in there against Nevada and USC, he proved that he's ready, But so are the other guys. So we're looking forward to that. And I know sometimes coaches shy away from quarterback questions. I don't at all. It's got to be just like every other position. You've got to create competition. You've got to let those guys get after it. And you've got to do a great job coaching everyone around them to make sure that the supporting cast is held just as accountable as quarterback is.
Mario Cristobal, Oregon head coach, man, we really, really appreciate it. Appreciate you actually checking out the show every now and then. And I hope this is not the last time that we talk before the season, brother.
And it's an honor to be on this show. Truly humbling. It really is. So I appreciate you. Be safe. Looking forward to being back any single time that you need us, and looking forward to hopefully having you over here in Eugene, Oregon, so you could check out the Ducks live in person.
You got it, brother. Appreciate it.